Over 3,600 new COVID cases. That's the big New Year's Day rush that's making health authorities worried. But here's a bit of a silver lining. The health department says the first Omicron cases in the country were asymptomatic or presented mild symptoms. The Berjaya Hotel in Makati confirms its involvement in the quarantine breach of Poblacion Girl with Tutu. And find out why anti-apartheid Archbishop Tutu has been laid to rest in the cheapest available coffin. One Feng shui expert sees 2022 as a better year for everyone. Fast, focused, and fearless. Here's everything you need to know to jumpstart your Sunday. I'm Riza Diaz. The health department recorded over 3,500 new COVID-19 infections during the first day of 2022. That's the highest daily tally since October 2021, and it brought the country's total caseload to over 2.8 million, some 17,000 of which are considered active cases or undergoing treatment. Around 43 new deaths were also reported yesterday, pushing the death toll to 51,500. Now, at least 468 new individuals recovered from COVID-19, bringing total recoveries to 2.7 million. Meanwhile, the positivity rate increased to 14.8% out of the 29,000 tests conducted. This is also the highest figure since October 2021. Now, based on the latest report of Octa Research Group, Metro Manila's positivity rate has jumped to 21%, while the reproduction number increased to 3.19 as of December 28. Research fellow Guido David warns that the capital may be classified as high risk from moderate classification by tomorrow. Now, according to the health department, the 3 recorded cases of Omicron variant infections were either asymptomatic or presented mild symptoms. DOH Epidemiology Bureau Director Dr. Althea de Guzman said all recorded Omicron patients have now completed their quarantine. And while the disease were only mild, she reminded the public to stay vigilant.
Yung tatlong kaso natin, kung hindi asymptomatic, ay mga mild disease lamang ang pinresent po nila. No? And sa ngayon din, nakakompleto na po sila ng kanilang mga isolation.
Meanwhile, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III again urged people to cooperate with contact tracing efforts. He also asked the public to be truthful in answering contact tracing procedures.
So you have to cooperate. You have to submit yourself. We have the numbers. We have sufficiently and adequately published those numbers for them to contact para to really give the real information and the proper interventions. Again, it's for their protection. Hindi naman po gagawin ito para po sila mapahamak. Ginagawa po natin ito dahil ayon po aayon po sa batas.
The management of Berjaya Hotel in Makati has apologized for its involvement in Poblacion Girl Gwyneth Chua's quarantine breach. In a statement, the management confirmed that one of their guests had broken quarantine protocols, but the hotel vowed to penalize any employee found to be involved in the breach and assured the public that they are fully cooperating with authorities that are investigating the incident. Now, the push to get vaccines to the rest of the human population continues as COVID variants emerges. Now, how will the jabs get to hard-reach communities? Let's watch this.
Well, the reality is if we continue with having so many places and populations not vaccinated, we will continue with this pandemic. And in fact, maybe we'll need to jab ourselves more often. I mean, this is really what we need to do is getting more people vaccinated and getting more vaccines out there. And indeed, those of us who can get reinforcements with other vaccines do so, because the Omicron is pretty much swiping out the rest of this year.
One of the big worries is that as privileged countries in the developed world start giving ourselves fourth boosters, there are a lot of poorer countries that haven't even been able to get their two initial shots, or maybe even not the first shot. Isn't that a recipe for disaster?
Well, I think we're already seeing it's a recipe for disaster, right? I think we know very well that when you have a lot of populations that under-vaccinated or not vaccinated, these variants arise. So that's why we have some really great news with the fact that, our Texas Children's Center for Vaccine Development, together with Biological E in India, just got authorization of a very conventional way of making vaccines. It's a protein-based vaccines that we think can now be made in large scales and hopefully bring it to those locations where there's a hard time getting vaccines or getting people vaccinated.
Maria Elena, what about the hope that this virus eventually mutates itself into something not nearly as harmful to your health as a human being? I mean, how high is the likelihood of that?
That's a very good question. And of course, we've seen how we do have other coronaviruses that are what we call common cold type of coronaviruses, right? It takes a while. I mean, it's not a given that, this virus from one day to the other is going to become this community type of, not as pathogenic virus. What we still do not know, however, is, again, those long-term eventual consequences of having been infected with all sorts of variants from COVID-19 or the SARS-CoV-2. But if we continue, it may be that indeed it will become established, but at what money, right? I mean, we don't know the impact of morbidity. We do not know the impact of cost on health, and eventually, as you're very interested in what's the economic impact of having all these people sick or all these people pretty much with sequelae from this disease.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. South Africa's Archbishop Desmond Tutu, one of the country's anti-apartheid leaders and a human rights activist, has died at 90 years old. Now, the country's held a state funeral for the Nobel Peace Prize winner. But at Tutu's request, he was laid to rest in the cheapest coffin available. Let's watch this.
Archbishop Tutu has left a formidable legacy, and we are enormously diminished by his passing. His life straddled an epoch in our country's history that has now come to an end. Though we say goodbye to him today with the heaviest of hearts, we salute our beloved Arch for all that he did to help build this nation.
The God of peace who brought again from the dead our Lord Jesus.
I'm standing to convey our family's thanks for the many ways in which all of you have stepped forward to tell us of how much you loved Daddy.
Now let's take a look at how other countries welcome the new year. In New York, the annual pilgrimage to Times Square for New Year's Eve returned after being held virtually last year. 15,000 spectators were allowed to watch the iconic giant glittering ball drop during the countdown to midnight. Millions more watched on their televisions. Now, over in Honduras, some residents burned effigies of political leaders as they ushered in the new year. The ritual is part of a long-standing New Year's Eve tradition in the Central American nation. Hondurans burned life-size dolls of President Juan Orlando Hernandez, who has been accused of allegedly having ties to drug trafficking. Residents say by burning effigies, they express their wish to leave behind the bad of the previous year and ring in 2022 with a clean slate. Meanwhile, brave Italians welcome 2022 with a traditional dive into Rome's freezing Tiber River. Now, a crowd gathered around to watch the annual Tiber dive that has been a tradition for 50 years. The divers took the plunge with style, plummeting off the bridge or the 30-meter bridge for the enjoyment of hundreds of spectators. Now, one Feng Shui expert sees 2022 as a better year for everyone as he sees the pandemic coming to an end this year. Faith Del Mundo with the story.
According to Feng Shui expert Tony Suvega, 2022 will be a better year for everyone. And to bring in more luck, Suvega advises wearing these colors.
Mga maswerteng kulay, yung top color, blue, yung water number ending 2 ay blue yun o asul, yun naman tigre ay kulay green. So pwedeng blue, pwedeng green.
He also recommends wearing metal elements such as bracelets with bronze. Suvega also sees the Philippine economy flourishing next year.
Pilipinas, maganda yung position natin sa, ito na yung panahon ng recovery na kung baga, makaka-recover ka na ngayon 22.
But the expert said that Filipinos must learn to save money in 2022 as 2023 may not be a good year.
Ingatan natin kung ano man ang maiipon natin sa taong nasabi hanggang January 31, 2023 para handa tayo pagpasok ng year ng Water Rabbit.
Despite seeing the possibility of the pandemic ending this year, he warns that another disaster will come, which may be a tsunami or a disastrous natural calamity.
Lahat ng tao sa buong mundo ay apektado ng sinasabing kung ano man yun. There is violence with the earth. So it could be erosion, it could be lindol, it could be landslide. Sa kahilagaan yung tinatawag na avalanche, glacier, mag-iingat tayo sa apoy, any kind of friction.
To counter this, Suvega said that planting trees may be helpful not just on Feng Shui perspective, but also based on science. For businesses, the Feng Shui expert said that it will be a good time to venture into water and food industry, as well in health, education, and media. But he reminds the public Feng Shui is just a guide and success will just depend on a person's hard work and determination. For News 5, Faith Del Mundo, we are One News.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later again at 9 in the morning as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories from sunrise to sundown. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.